So now that we are in the 21st century, I'm going to be reading this off of my phone. I apologize in advance, but yeah, I've been tweaking it till literally 30 seconds ago, so here we go. There's something to be nervous about. It's okay. All right. All right. But before we get started, before anything else, I do want to thank everyone who's traveled here, who's been able to show up. I know things come up in life, and there are some important people who weren't able to be here, but I know that makes your presence even more special, and I just want to thank you for being here for Celine and for Sam. And as someone who spent a good 15 months putting time and effort and sweat and not so much tears, but all of the rest of it into planning and decorating and all of the little details of this wedding, I am very appreciative, and I'm glad you're all here to share in this beautiful and lovely day with Celine and Sam. For those of you who don't know me, which is probably a very, very small number at this point, I am Celine's sister. I know the resemblance isn't quite as striking as Sam and Chase, but that was a very, very low bar. And I'll be honest, I have not always been the easiest younger sister to have. According to my mom, Celine came out of the womb with this sweet, pitiful little whimper, and I came out screaming. It's no wonder that when Mom brought me home for the first time, Celine said, I said, Mommy, send her back. Take her back. I was never easygoing nor deferential to my big sister, and if anything, I would be the one to boss her around. And Celine would ultimately take the high road, and she would indulge me, agreeing to take the higher road, agreeing to the activity I had in mind, ceding both Gabriella and Sharpay's parts to me when we sang High School Musical songs, always letting me be the character I ever wanted, with the one exception is when we would see our cousins from Ohio. We would pretend to be the March Sisters from Little Women, and then I would always be Amy as much as I could fight it, but Celine and her two allies put me in my place, and I can look back now and say that the casting was apt. And if anyone was wondering, Celine was Meg. I quickly learned the meaning of the term stir the pot, which was one of my favorite activities to do at Celine's expense. I had an almost uncanny knack for pushing her buttons, which was another term I learned at a very young age. And occasionally she would get me back, like when she ruined the concept of Santa for me at the ripe age of 5. It was not an even exchange. Celine was definitely on the receiving end, much more than I was. There were other times, though, when we got along like the best of friends. When our family went to Australia for 3 months while my dad was on sabbatical, we quite literally only had each other for non-parental human interaction. We would do things like singing the Oompa Loompa song from Willy Wonka into an oscillating fan to make our voices sound funny. We would play our brand new Game Boy Advance, taking turns, but Celine didn't love it that much, so it usually, fell to me a little bit. We would still take turns. You played Harry Potter. And we explored nearly every playground in Melbourne together. We went through different phases of favorite pastimes over the years. We would dance around the family room, like my dad said. We would play with Ellos, Polly Pockets, and Barbies, fashion wizard's wands out of sticks in the backyard. We would play games like Giant and Sardines and hide and seek in the house to entertain ourselves, and we would sink hours into our favorite Nintendo games. And we were also pretty inventive in creating our own pastimes. In the summer, we had shoe flinging competitions and extreme toothpaste, which sounds innocuous, but it could have ended really, really badly. It never did, thankfully. And in the autumn, we would rake fallen leaves into all sorts of mazes and play this game we made up called Scramble. So there were surely peaks and valleys within our relationship, but many of my fondest memories wouldn't exist without Celine. Fast forward to the summer of 2020. Celine and I were both home from New York City. and COVID had no foreseeable end in sight. Shortly before the pandemic hit, Celine had been active on a few dating apps. She had met some new people in New York, gone on a few dates, but everything came to a screeching halt with COVID. And even though the world was shut down and Celine was at the opposite end of New York State, she kept active on at least one of those platforms. Enter Sam. My first inkling of Sam's existence was when Celine suggested Broadchurch as the next COVID binge show that my mom, Celine, and I would watch together. We were going through multiple episodes a day, and we asked Celine, where did you hear about this show? And she was like, oh, this guy I'm talking to named Sam mentioned it to me. So that was like the first exposure I got to the existence of Sam Watkins. And we did like that show. 10 out of 10 would recommend, okay. So apparently Sam liked, on the first exposure, I learned that Sam liked Agatha Christie novels, that he'd done theater in high school, and that he was a news producer living in New York City. A few weeks went by, they continued chatting, and I learned he loved some of the same movies as Celine. And Lord of the Rings, if you hadn't sensed the inspiration and hadn't looked at that map over there, Lord of the Rings was a big one we've bonded on. He was a big fan of baseball, which is not something I can say my sister ever gave two shits about. But he had gone to school at a SUNY, he'd gone to college at a SUNY school, which in the family, my dad taught at UB, okay. So that was familiar, and most importantly, Sam appreciated the comedic genius of NBC's The Office. And the first time I talked to him over the phone, apparently he was nervous to meet me, so I can only imagine what Celine had been telling him about me. But I was pleased to find that he got many of my references of The Office, even the obscure ones. And Celine had never watched the show at this point, so everything went right over her head. She would never watch it when I told her to, but thankfully Sam changed that, and she was exposed to the masterpiece of ensemble work that is The Office. Thank you for opening her up to that piece of culture, Sam. I didn't realize how serious they were until one slightly buzzed evening. We were watching the CGI abomination that is the 2019 movie Cats, which can only be suffered through with the assistance of alcohol. And Celine kept checking her cell phone like every couple minutes, and it was more frequently than was warranted by the nightmare of cringe playing on the screen. She kept looking down at her screen and smiling. I was like, okay, that's not because of cats. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a busybody. So little busybody me, I was like, okay, what's up? What's going on? And if you guessed it, she was texting Sam. And even just from looking at the messages, I could tell that this was something different than the guys she'd messaged in the past, than the dates she'd been on. This seemed a little more serious. And Celine is a bit of a romantic. She always loved fantasy and fairy tales, so naturally her standards for men have always been really high. Like, more than a little high. It seemed unlikely that she would check every box on her list because the person probably didn't even exist, even in fairy tales. But when she met Sam, it became clear that her stringent, lofty requirements in her partner were not as important as she thought they'd be, because what was important was the love. The love that you shared surpassed all of the unrealistic expectations. Sam met a lot of these expectations. I will just put that out there. But look, until you meet the person, you can have this abstract idea of perfection, but it went out the window because it wasn't important anymore when you met Sam. I'm trying to say that you guys love each other, okay? Sam, this is no dig on you, okay? All right, so what was important was the love, and that was apparent with you and Celine. And the two of you clicked so easily. While you're strikingly similar in some truly jarring ways, I have no doubt that you'll continue to push your boundaries and grow as the relationship flourishes. You've proven your dedication not only to each other, but to your two crazy felines, who are definitely not the easiest pets to keep alive. I have to wrap this up now, so I'm going to say something that I've been holding on to since the first time I talked to you on the phone, Sam. Sam Cool, welcome to the family.